Hello, and welcome to the Author Roundup, a special segment of the Book Connection Show where we meet up and coming indie authors and talk to them about their recently released books. Hi, welcome to Author Roundup. For today's episode, we'll be talking to our indie author, Clair Campbell. She's an author, lawyer, and venue owner in the woods from the Carolinas. A very busy lady with a lot of interests, all here in this book: art, poetry, and nature. So Claire is here with us today to talk about her book, The Garden in the Wood. And hi, Claire, how are you?
Hi, Jenny. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk to you about your book. Okay, so it's called The Garden in the Wood. And
Yes.
yes, it was published a few months back, right?
Correct, at the end of 2023.
Okay, a nice way to end 2023 for you.
For 2024, we've got to get it out
Yes,
there and
yeah,
sell it.
yes. So tell us about your book.
Well, just to give you a quick little caption and an excerpt from the back, it is about a walk in the wood, and yet it's designed to be a bedtime story to reflect the adventures of the day and the excitement for tomorrow, but also it shows the child and the parent or the babysitter or the nanny or the friend who's reading it that there are wonderful creatures in the wood that are fun to meet, not scary, and it sort of naturalizes and neutralizes all the things that surround us. And just to tell you a little bit about the back, it says, take a very magical walk in a real wood before bedtime. Meet new friends on an adventure that takes you into the magnificent, quiet places. Meet creatures of the day and night, and colors surround you on all sides. My illustrator did a beautiful job with the book. And she and I first met years ago when she drew a picture, painted it of my dog, Maeve. I have a little Yorkie, and her picture is featured in the bio and in the book. So this just gives you a little view of what it looks like from the cover.
Yes, I saw the illustrations and they are really nice. Very colorful, lifelike, and all that. I'm sure the kids will love it. And tell us what inspired the idea for your book.
Well, I've been writing little stories for my own children who are now adults, all their lives. I have a 23-year-old and a 29-year-old. And what's been interesting for me as a creative writer is that it's easy to tell stories because we're a community all around the world of storytellers. But finally, putting it down on paper was my goal this last year in writing the book, a story that I had kind of been thinking about for quite a long time, along with others. And then knowing Kathy, I'm like, I've got an artist on hand. Let me go ahead and write this down and get in touch with her and see if she's up to illustrating it for me so we can have a little partnership with this book. But what precipitated the kind of the motivating final factor was my husband and I bought a hunting lodge and have been restoring it for the past 2 years in a little area in North Carolina called Anson County. And it is full of all the creatures that show up in the book: turkeys, deer, squirrels, bumblebees, all of the festive creatures that we see, the hawk, the magnificent stag, all of this in the book. And when I walk outside, I feel a little bit like Snow White every day at the hunting lodge, because there you walk outside and the animals just come. And it's fascinating to me how we're surrounded, even just a few miles from a very busy metropolis, Charlotte or Raleigh, North Carolina, or Columbia, South Carolina. And yet all of these creatures are still able to exist very close to a modern city.
So most of the animals in the book are real animals from your woods.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's
They are,
interesting.
and they're all creatures that we see with frequency. There's a little fox that lives up on the ridge behind our lodge, and he's fat, so he's well fed. He's getting some food out there, and but they're always you approach with caution. You don't ever want to get too close to these animals, and the book talks about that there's respect involved when you go out into another creature's domain, habitat. You watch, you observe, but you don't engage. And the book talks about these things that keep the reader safe, would keep the child safe, but yet it's educational. We want to learn about these other creatures that inhabit our planet.
Yes, I think that's a very good way to interact for parents to interact with their kids. Kids nowadays are more into technology, like just in their iPads and everything. It would be nice to, you know, listen to a story like the one in your book and actually imagine what goes on, like the animals that they'll meet along the way.
Yes, and disconnect a little bit. You want to
Mhm.
disconnect from your technology, disconnect
Yeah.
from your cell phone, and take a few minutes to walk in the woods. And this book allows you to go for a very, very magical walk through the pages and pretend that you're in that setting, that you're looking at the beautiful flowers and
Mhm.
trees and birds and animals that you might just happen upon. And
Yeah.
and the book allows that revelation, just
Mhm.
like a walk, to go around a little bend in the trail and then
Mhm.
look what we see now. And
Mhm.
this is the way it was written, to have that surprise, but also that expectation of something very special when you put that Game Boy down or whatever you're playing with now,
Mhm.
and you actually take an adventure in a book. Because as you know,
There, excuse me.
imaginations are
Yeah.
so much more vivid. The great part about the book is it takes you along a trail that may have a little turn or bend in the curve of the wood, and you discover a hidden animal or something that is unexpected. And that's what is so exciting about reading in general. We want to be surprised. We want to follow a story. We want our imagination to fill in the blanks sometimes. And,
Mhm.
and that's the beauty of a book versus, say, television or a cartoon. Our imagination doesn't have time to fill in anything. So there's no participation. With a book, we get to participate with the turning of the page, or if it's an ebook, clicking to go forward. But we also are able to engage with the story, with the artwork, and really what's next, and what's going to happen to these animals. And tomorrow, if I come back and see them again, read the book again, I'm going to notice possibly something that I missed yesterday. A
Right.
little bumblebee or a little drip of water or a little raccoon peeking out,
Mhm.
because the book is packed full of all kinds of creatures. And every time I even look at it, I will text Kathy, hey, I just noticed this little bird on this branch hidden in this tree, because the main focus of the page might be the beautiful daddy stag. And
Mhm.
what happens is, when you're concentrated on the stag and you've read the copy, you may not recognize that the next time you look at the page, there's a little bird up in the tree, or a little raccoon peeking behind, or an owl in a little nook in the tree. Kathy has secreted all kinds of creatures on every page. And so even though the main large focal point
Mhm.
is drawing your attention at the time, when you go back to reread it over and over again, you'll notice something special each time. So that requires some engagement from the reader.
Oh, that's nice. So there's like a little surprise in every page.
Yes,
So you'll
yes,
see some animals hidden in, different parts of the page.
very much so. This is the way
That's
she's designed
interesting.
it. Yes,
Mhm. I didn't
because
notice that when I was going, through your book, but
it's worth
that
looking
makes
at
me want
again.
to, yeah, that makes me want to look at it again.
Yes, yes, and that's what we hope. Children will be excited that when they look at it the next night for bedtime, they're like, "Oh, mom or dad, look, there's a little chipmunk. I didn't
Yeah.
see that chipmunk before. Did it come in overnight?" And that's because every day the woods change, and
Yes.
every day there are creatures that move about. They're not caged like at a zoo. And
Mhm.
that's the beautiful part of this book, is that it allows you to see that these creatures are living in their natural habitat, not in a man-made created one.
I see. So, Claire, you said, or I know from your bio, that this is not your first book,
No.
right? Yeah. So, how long did it take you to write this book then?
Well, I would love to say it took 3 days because I sat down and did it. But unfortunately, with all of the other things that I do in my life, if I can cordon off, a few minutes of
Mhm.
writing a day, that's kind of the way it happens. I have a cell phone and I'll dictate to my cell phone a couple of ideas, then go on and do a deposition for a legal trial, go on
Oh.
check some people into the lodge that are
Mhm.
staying for the weekend or host a wedding, and then come back and then dictate a couple of more lines. And then that's kind of how this book got put together. It took probably a year, but when you look at how simple it is and how easy it is to read and how short it is, you're like, what? Why did it take a year? Well, it took a year because I wasn't focused on it the entire time. And had I been, and that again is a goal for me, is to block off weeks of time for me to enjoy my writing.
Yes. Are you the kind of person who would, become more productive when you're doing a lot of things? Some people are like that.
You're right. And I'm a doer. I'm a type A personality who just goes and goes. And a friend of mine recently had this conversation with me about retirement. And he said, what are you going to do when you retire? And I said, well, one, I don't think I'm going to retire. And two, whatever I do will be with as much vigor and zest as
Mhm.
everything that I've done in my work life. So whether it's tilling up a garden out in my yard, because I
Mhm.
absolutely love flowers. And again, that's another component of the garden in the wood, is to
Yeah.
absolutely fill it with flowers.
Mhm.
Um, but two, I hope I'll have more time to write and be able to do that furiously and with great fun.
Yeah. Oh, I think we'll get to see more books from you.
I hope so.
Yes. So, so a year, you said, like around a year,
Yeah,
give or
and
take.
just minutes, if the book itself took 148 minutes to write, those 148 minutes took place over a year, an entire year of time. And
Oh,
I
okay.
would write a little bit and send the blurb to Kathy. And of course, the drawings took
Yeah.
much time and detail.
Yes. So you were writing and then simultaneously Kathy was doing the illustrations.
Correct. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I thought like you finished everything first when it comes to the text and then
Yeah, we a little bit. She had the idea, so she knew I wanted a deer, she knew I wanted a
Mhm.
squirrel, she knew I wanted a raccoon, but she did the overlay of all of the other creatures and the woods and the interpretation of the garden. All of that was her original inspiration.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious, did the illustration for the animals actually come from the real animals in your place, like in the wood?
Yes, yes. I took photographs of everything
Mm-hmm.
and sent those to her. I also, Googled a little on the internet and
Mm-hmm.
said I definitely want the big buck with the antlers to have this many points. And so
Mm-hmm.
because that's important, because the book talks about the number of points. And for deer, every little nook on their antler is called a point. And the gobbler typically hangs out with a bunch of hens. They're
Mm-hmm.
usually, you see more hens than gobblers, and so that's the case in the book. And each of the flowers, we did a little research because one of the lines originally in the book was about deer eating something that is poisonous. And so she and I both are like, wait, they can't eat that. That they wouldn't eat that. So we changed some of the lines based on what she was drawing. When we were researching, maybe that's not the appropriate thing for deer to eat. So let's change that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So since you mentioned that you had to do a little research and all that, tell us what part of the book was the most difficult to write, or what's most challenging about this whole process?
Well, I think also is the as you mentioned a little earlier when we were just chatting before the interview started, is the sing-song nature of the lyric and the sort of the poetry that goes through the book. And rhyming is not always easy with a phrase or a point that I want to make. So if the theme is going in a certain direction to match the illustration to carry the story forward, and the word I want to use doesn't really have a good rhyming word to make
Mm-hmm.
sense to carry the story. That was a preoccupation I had for a while. Is sometimes I would be stuck on a thought, particularly with the squirrels bounding, from tree to tree. And I didn't want to just use an obvious word, but at the same time, it had to match. It had to match the story. It had to fit the activity of the animals in that space, or it had to be descriptive for the person actually walking through the perspective that they had of the activity or the observation. So the rhyming, I think, was the most challenging for me.
That's the part I like most in the book. I said that earlier, right? Well, I really like the way, it flows when you read it out loud. So I can just imagine how difficult it was, especially you have to consider that your audience here are kids. So
Right.
words have to be something that they would understand, and that's
Yes,
going to be simple enough for them to, to understand, to remember, and all that.
that's
Okay.
right.
And
And
what's
it's, and to that point, I think when I like the fact that you mentioned out loud, because when you read things privately in your head, you read a lot faster, and you don't always pay attention to the way it's laid out, the pauses when, poetry has a cadence. And
yes.
here, it was very important for me to everything when I wrote it, I would read it again and read it out loud. I'd read it over and over, because if it didn't flow from page to page, if it didn't flow from line to line, I'd have to stop, revisit, and go back, because it's important, when you're reading a children's story to a child, that they get it, that they want to hear it again. And I remember, with my kids, you read it one more time, mommy, before bed. And you're like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, okay, I've already read it 3 times already, but yeah, okay, we'll read it again. And sometimes there would be a negotiation that would take place before bedtime as to how many times we're going to read the book. And, and my daughter would always volunteer at 2 years old. She could read a little bit, but not completely. And she says, well, you read one page, I'll read the next. Well, I knew that
Mhm.
was a stall tactic right away, because she would be remembering, and her version of her reading was rote memory of the page, and it's fascinating how quickly they can
Mhm.
mimic without reading. She just, and it wasn't always accurate, but it was fun to challenge her, but also to say, if you're going to help me read, then we're only going to do it once, because of course it would take a lot longer.
Right. So they get to memorize some of the words in it. Yeah.
Yes.
Especially those that would really be something that they can relate to, or something that's really interesting for them, right?
Yes, and I think it's fun. It's a challenge for them, and they like that. And because one line I like that on a page, particularly with as we were talking about with the great stag, it says the great stag stands tall on the path just ahead. We count 12 points on his antlers. How does he go to bed? And so, it's a bedtime story, and it's important that they're beginning to think that, okay, we're wondering how he goes to bed with that big old, contraption on his head.
Right.
How does he
Mhm.
lay down? And they're thinking, okay, well, I'm already on my pillow. I got this easy. I know how to do this. I don't have to worry
Mhm.
about that antler rack.
I can just imagine what all the things that they would try to come up with when you read that, right? All of the things that they can imagine in their minds, like how, the stag would actually sleep.
Right, right. And that it would invite a conversation. And I love that. And the parent could say, or the reader could say, well, we've got time, a couple more minutes, we'll talk about this and all the other creatures and how they go to bed. Or, that's something we'll talk about at breakfast tomorrow. It's bedtime.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
finish the story.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the challenging part. How about the fun part
The
in the
fun part
process?
is, yeah, oh wow. And the fun part is always going to be starting to see the smiles on faces when I've given it out. I've already been asked several times to sign my name on a copy. Friends have been so cute. They buy it, then they
Mhm.
mail it to me, and then I mail it because they don't all live close. And it's that's fun. It's a little vanity to enjoy
Yeah.
the acclaim, but at the same time, really just to be excited about sharing something that I think is absolutely beautiful with the world, but also with the people that mean something to me. And we've gifted this, both my husband and I, have clients in our businesses, and it is so special to be able to share that. And yeah, we want to make money with it. We want it to sell, but at the same time, to have a little stash that you can gift is
Yes.
really exciting, and to see the true joy on the recipient's face with great pleasure. And that makes me really happy, because that's why I wrote it, is to see people enjoy it.
Can you share with us the nicest feedback that you can remember from, from your readers, since you said that you were able to interact with some of them?
Right. Well, is that they enjoyed being able to, well, many of them have been out to my lodge. And when they go back to Tennessee or Charleston, South Carolina, or one in London, England, and say they got to take a little bit of the woods, back home with them, and with this, and to be remembering their experiences there. We have had several people that I ran out of copies at the lodge to sell to some of our guests. And they said, here's my charge card number. Please send me one, because I want to have a memory of the time that we shared together. And this has been such an enchanting place to visit. Our little lodge in the woods, and to see our garden in the woods and the animals that are just naturally there. It's been a really special thing to understand that these people want to take home to experience again in the privacy of their own homes and their memories, to engage in that armchair traveling that we all love.
Right. I get why they would want to do that. So the memories that they had in your lodge would be something that they can live through again when they read your book.
Yes.
So it must be really interesting to talk to them about your book. And you said that you get to sign the books as well,
Yes,
right?
and I've been signing copies and personalizing it when I'm there.
Wow, that's nice. Since this is your second book, and I'm sure it won't be the last, you'll be writing more. What advice can you give to someone who would want to start writing a book?
Well, the biggest thing, and this was a mistake that I made, but it was a choice I made. And many writers coming right out of either high school or college, and starting even earlier, I started writing probably when I was in seventh grade, if not sooner, just little poems and things like that. Is that if you stop for whatever reason, whether it's a job or family requirements, etc., it's very difficult to make the time to start again. And so my advice to anyone who has some creative energy and expressions that they want to get down on page, either dictate it into your cell phone, just to keep a running record of that, or get your laptop out and hammer out a few thoughts, because the minute you stop doing that, it is very hard to catch the muse again. It is very hard to, just like exercise. This is the big thing we're all supposed to do every day. And it is the last thing many people want to do. And so they do everything they can with their busy schedules to prevent time to exercise. And then at the end of the day, it's like, it's time for dinner. It's too late to exercise. And so same kind of thing can happen with writing. And what I found, as with everything, the earlier in the day you do it, the more productive it will be, the quicker it will get done. Allow yourself, an hour. If you've got to get to work, just get up an hour earlier, hammer out some thoughts, because even if it's only a sentence or two that you love and the rest of the time is a waste, it's important that you at least spent that time to get that thought down, and you've got at least an archive of thoughts when you do find time to gel it all together. So I think that's the most important tip that I would have. I unfortunately took a lot of time off to raise children, to build a law practice, and I probably didn't write for 10 years. And that was a really desert in my life emotionally. And I don't recommend that. And not, my children are just a joy. I don't mean to imply that. It's just that everything I had was poured out into my family and into my job. So there was nothing left over for Claire. And the writing is a Claire thing. It's a very personal thing. It's a very selfish thing. But what I've decided later in life is that if we're not selfish first, that affects the way everything else flows, and the energy level you have everywhere else. Just like on the aircraft, where when the mask falls down, they said, put it on yourself first before your children. Well, there's a reason. If you pass out, your kid's not going to get any air anyway. So take
Right.
care of yourself first. And if we all take that advice, and me too, because I forget sometimes, and I'm the last person that gets any attention around the house if on particular days. But I'm being much more conscientious about taking time to write, taking time to be creative, taking time to feed my soul, which
Mm-hmm.
is important. And if we don't do that, we get dry, just like an unwatered beautiful plant. And that beautiful plant, if it's not watered and fed appropriately and timely, it risks withering and dying. And so I think we're all, as individuals, if we don't have an expressive outlet for our creativity, and we don't make that time, then that's a part of us that we may lose.
I like what you said. Um, a lot of people would think that they have to take a break from work in order to focus on their writing and all that. Like what you said about, just dictating stuff in your cell phone, just putting into words whatever thoughts that will come to mind. Yeah. That gives us hope for those who would want to write books and who
Yes,
always try to find time. The general idea is that you'd have to take time off from whatever it is you're doing, the
right.
basic things that you're doing in life.
If you
Yeah.
have the
That's
luxury to
not
do
always the
that,
case.
yeah, if you have the
Uh-huh.
luxury to do that, back to the 148 minutes it took to write this book over a year,
Mhm.
and so that I'm in that other group. But if you're in the group that has the luxury of time and you don't have, four other businesses to run and a family to raise, et cetera,
Right, right.
then you can sit and write for 6 hours a day and get your
Mhm.
book done in 3 months. I mean, that would be fabulous. Obviously a book longer than this one, but I think
Mhm.
that a novel can, I mean, they talk about novels, Jackie Collins or whoever else has written stuff in a week,
Mhm.
Robert Ludlum, and that's just having the luxury of time and the energy and the well thought out plots, et cetera. So I think these things can be accomplished, mind over matter, right?
Right, right. Yeah, it gives, like I've said, it gives us hope that we can also do it. Maybe we'll try and do it the way you did. Like every
Yes,
time,
well,
thoughts
I
would run
recommend
into
it.
our
Yeah,
heads.
don't,
Yeah,
and the choice is do it or don't do it. So the don't do it just shouldn't be an option, just do what you can, I think, for
yeah.
all of us.
There are a lot of people who would dream of writing a book, and they would always say that I don't have the time, I don't have the energy or something. But here you are, a very busy lady. You're a lawyer, like you manage your business and all that, but you're able to write a really, really nice book. So
Thank you.
that
Well, I
gives us
love it.
hope.
Yeah, well, it should. And I just don't think anybody should. Um, well, I think there are reasons, there are excuses. We all can make the time. And I think the TV, streaming, everything, all of the things that we do to justify the expense of our time, maybe those things are not always the best use of it.
Yeah, I agree. So now that your book is out and you've said that you've sold a lot already in your lodge, what are your personal and professional goals for this year?
Well, other than the book, is to have 50 weddings at the lodge. It's also a wedding venue. It's to complete a travel plan for my family in 2026. We
Mm-hmm.
go on destination holiday vacations, and there are 7 of us now in the family, so it's a big orchestration of time. And then spend more time. We have a little surf shack at the beach, and so spend more time walking on the beach. And I've already started working on a garden in the marsh, and that will
Mm-hmm.
be a next book in this series about
Oh,
gardens along the seabed and along the marshes and tributaries that lead into the ocean.
so that's going to be most likely another collaboration with
With
Kathy.
Kathy, yes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's something to look forward to.
And I'll show you my first little collaboration with Kathy. She and I met years
Hello.
ago. I was at a charitable auction, and one of the things that I could bid on or pay for was a pet portrait. And this is Maeve. Her picture is in the book also. And Maeve is my 12-year-old little Yorkie. And I won the pet portrait part of the auction, and Kathy was the illustrator, the pet portrait person. And so she and I got in touch. She did a beautiful picture of Maeve. And ultimately, over time, she's done a lot of other artistic things for me. She's also a graphic artist. So with our lodge, she's done the design for the logo for the lodge. I have a crest at our home in Charlotte, and she's designed the crest. And it's also a forest type crest with the stag and the fox and Maeve and a bunny and a hawk and all of that. And so gradually looking at all those different things, I said, Kathy, I said, we've got to do this children's book together, because you've already drawn all of the creatures for the crest, and now we just need to implement them into this book.
Yeah. So Maeve started it all. The
Maeve
collaboration.
started it all. Yeah, this little dog.
So thank you, Maeve.
Yay.
Yeah. Yay. So at least
5 pounds of feisty friendliness.
okay, so we're looking forward to that book that you mentioned about, the marsh and all that. I'm very much interested to see what sort of illustrations I'm going to see there and what animals will be there. So do you have like a final message to our viewers and our listeners?
Take a walk. Buy Garden in the Wood.
Okay, so thank you so much, Claire, for that very inspiring talk. I really enjoyed talking to you, not just about your book, but you sharing to us your personal life as well. And you've inspired a lot of us who would want to write books too, that it's going to be easy to find time if you really have the passion for it. So I really like what you said. And to all the people watching and listening, please make sure that you get a copy of Claire's book, The Garden in the Wood. So it's written by Clair Campbell and illustrated by Kathy Flynn. So it's available as a softcover, hardcover, and an ebook in Archway Publishing online bookstore, and also in Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Okay, so to everyone who joined us, thank you so much. And see you again on the next episode of the Author Roundup.